Fresh and
What's up, buds? I hope you really enjoyed this podcast, but I do want you to know we did record it before the ban announcement, so some of the information is going to sound a little wonky, but I think it's a fun convo anyway. So please enjoy. Just wanted to let you all know that this we recorded before the ban announcement. What can you do? Enjoy. All right, welcome back to another episode of Fresh and Buds. I am your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds, and I am joined by quite the skilled bud today from the center of America, Mr. Dagan White. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you, buddy. You know, we got to hang out a lot in Charlotte, and that was a blast, and I can't wait to hang out with you again. I figured, you know what, let's get Dagan on the podcast. We'll talk about how all these gold foils he's stealing from people, not stealing, but just wrecking the competition out in the Midwest right now. So let's get you on and talk about it. And I think we're going to have a great time. But before we get to that, I want to shout out the Patreon, which you all can find in the show notes, where you can help keep the lights on, the mics hot for this show and everything we do over here. It is it's a cool place to kind of get involved with content that I do. You can submit decks for the fresh text that we do on the Bud Rush Bellow. You get access to the Romping Club, which is a Patreon exclusive channel in the Buds Discord, which is also something I want to shout out. If you are not joined the Buds Discord, you can find it in the show notes as well. That is free to join, obviously, and a lot of great people hang out in there, including Dagan, and it is a great time, and we have a lot of awesome buds in there. I also want to shout out the Bud Rush Bellow. I just mentioned it. This is what I do with our friend Gary, aka Mr. Viz, on Wednesday evenings, 9:30 Eastern. It is a live podcast. We crack some packs. We get silly. It's a lot of fun. And if you want to watch me and Gary live and say some crazy stuff, including referring to the candy runts as the gnarliest candy out there, which we can thank our friend Greg for that one. So check it out, and that's on the YouTube, and the YouTube we're trying to grow 500 subs. I'm gonna do a full adult Levi cosplay, so once we get there, you get to see that, and I'll be miserable, and people love when I'm miserable. So no, I'm kidding. I will have a blast doing that. So let's get to the show. Mr. Dagan White, first of all, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's been a good couple weeks this past Pro Quest season.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing, you're posting in the Buzz Discord, actually, it's like, another gold foil, another gold foil. It's I mean, I wish I could say I'm surprised, but I'm not, right? I know what you're capable of, and, we're going to get to all the flesh and blood stuff, and we're going to kind of even take a look at Oldhim, right? Because that's kind of what you're running these tables with right now. And, also kind of what you've put an awesome guide out for. We'll get to all that. Before we do that, let's get to know you. Let's get to know the man behind the single brain cell, as you and Logan like to put it. But let's do it. Let's start at the beginning. When did TCGs come into your life, Dagan?
I think, like a lot of people when I was younger, I got a hold of some Pokemon cards. That's probably that's the earliest I can think of. A lot of people would trade them at the playground or whatever. But I didn't really start playing until probably middle school. I played more of Yu-Gi-Oh back then. I actually started a club, which there's a funny story about that too. One of the parents, because it's Midwest, so you have all sorts of people over here. And one of the parents was concerned we were practicing like Satanism or something. It's like a after school club. So I had to like assure a principal. I was like, I assure you, it's significantly less cool than that.
Yeah, less cool. That's. I mean, I do remember I went to Catholic school and we had a couple parents be very concerned about Yu-Gi-Oh and even Pokemon to a certain extent, which was wild, you know. But hey, listen, different strokes for different folks. But it's kind of funny. I mean, I view Yu-Gi-Oh as the devil myself because I never really enjoyed it, but that's
Understand for sure.
different reasoning. So you play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh in middle school. What about going into high school? Did it stay in your life?
Like a little bit, and then I also realized I came to the same conclusion you have, and I switched over to Magic at the time. So in high school, I mean, like most high schoolers, I didn't have like a lot of money to spend on competitive cards or whatever.
Sure.
So I'd mostly just grind drafts at like the local game store until I could eventually get a modern deck, and I played that for a little bit.
Yeah, and what set? You know, I don't really ask a lot about Magic, but like I know you're a little bit younger than me. I'm interested to see what set you kind of came into Magic because we had a lot of great eras in that game before Flesh and Blood came along, and you know Magic's doing a lot of things that we don't have to talk about, and I'm sure a lot of other people know what we're
Yeah.
referring to. But what era were you introduced into the Magic the Gathering
I think it
game?
was the first Theros set for me.
The first which one?
Theros. I
Oh,
think I
okay.
started about Theros. Yeah.
So back was like, you know, I have fond memories of the Theros era. It's and then going forward from there. Now, so that's what high school kind of brought you. You played draft and then got into modern. Now, did you always have a knack for these games, like in terms of like skill level?
To an extent, like most of my friends I would play with, I'd always maybe take it a step farther than everybody else will say, you know. I had that competitive mindset pretty early. Um, and it would get to the point where a lot of them just wouldn't want to play. So that's kind of how that went.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, I can understand. Yeah, there's always the most competitive one in the group, right? You know, it's
For
just
sure.
what it is. But that's the nice thing about like card games in general, though, because there's always, at least in most card game, there's enough of a spectrum in terms of how you can enjoy the game, where you could still hang out with someone who's like, you know, wants to be casual, and then also, you know, you got the person that wants to, you know, win the pro tour, which is kind of cool. And you
Yeah.
know, and then there's like they can meet in the middle sometimes. Now,
Mhm.
so you've had a knack for Flesh and Blood. There's no doubt, right? And some other games that and all that. But was there ever a game you felt as though you didn't quite click with how it like played, or just like you didn't feel that your own mental skill set didn't apply to it?
That was Pokemon for me for sure. I actually went from Magic to Pokemon, and usually it's the other way around.
Mm.
Um, so I traveled for that for a couple of years to do like the regionals, the bigger championships, and that kind of stuff. But I never really did very well. I think part of it for me was like the variance was absurd, and a lot of the time I would base my mood on results,
Mm.
and I would never recommend that. So that did not do great for my mental health. And I learned to just kind of drop that afterwards, and then that's kind of where Flesh and Blood came in, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I haven't played Pokemon in maybe forever. I mean, I remember, you know, I had my cousin on a couple episodes ago. We talked about we used to play the Pokemon uh, TCG game on the Game Boy.
Oh yeah, yeah. That game was great.
Yeah, it was awesome, and I remember really enjoying the game. Like I remember enjoying Pokemon the game on the Game Boy more than I did in paper. But I just remember a lot of coin flips and stuff like that, which, you
Yeah.
know, you would think since I'm a Levi player, I would enjoy that. But I prefer when like I'm the only one coin flipping. I think so.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now here's a question for you: have you ever been banned from a game?
I I have a feeling a lot of you already know the answer to that.
Well, for those who don't, if you want to talk about it, there is a game that Dagan's not allowed to play anymore. I mean, I guess you're allowed to play it. You can't compete in it, but
It doesn't mean I will, though.
yeah, that's true. So that's entirely up to you if you want to talk about it, Dagan.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want like the whole story about how that happens? Because I can probably do a short version. Otherwise,
Yeah, hit us with the short version. Give us the spark
sure,
notes here.
yeah. So MetaZoo is the game. Which,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not really worth mentioning outside of this conversation, to be completely honest.
Sure.
But a local game store I played Flesh and Blood at, our game castle over here. They were hosting a MetaZoo event, and it was marketed as a qualifier for a 250K, and all you had to do was show up. And I was like, what? That's insane.
Yeah.
No problem. Let's do it. So I learned it in like a week or whatever, built this deck, and then like slapped most people there. I was like, okay, this is fine. So they had the tournament in Dallas, and it was a 250K. There was like no entry fee, and like I said, the qualification was like nothing. So I was like, all right, let's do it. So I grabbed a couple people that I knew, and we all drove down there. And I had talked a little smack on Twitter prior to this. I was like, this game is easy, or something along the lines of like, not many people play this game. Everybody feels new. And MetaZoo responded directly, and they're like, well, if it's so easy, then you'll have no problem. They're basically like encouraging me to show up. I was like, great, this is awesome. I love this. So I had no idea what was about to happen. We even joked like on the way back or on the way there that what if they just like banned me for something? So we get there and I lose like one game day one.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's insane. I learned the deck or I learned the game like 2 weeks before. It's not hard. It's like a mix of all the other card games, but a worse version of them. And so then I post in one of their discords, like the MetaZoo Discord, and I was like, now you can't make fun of me. I'm in day 2, because they were roasting me prior to this. And then MetaZoo DMs me when we're going through like a drive-through after day 1, like a Whataburgers or something. And they're like, due to reported toxicity, we cannot let you play day 2. I was like, what? Like I had no bad experiences with anybody there, nothing. And so that's kind of how that ended. I mean, I tested positive for COVID, so I wasn't going to end up going to day 2 anyway.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate turn of events. I just wish I could have had a conversation. To kind of see, like, what is this about?
I think when I think about this story often, actually, and especially when I see there's a ton of new TCGs coming out, right, and
Right.
a lot of you could argue that Flesh and Blood is really kind of inspiring a lot of people to put out new TCGs, which is awesome. Like more competition, more games for people to play, and I hope in the same way that Flesh and Blood is inspiring these new TCGs to kind of like get out there, have tournaments, get people playing their game. I hope they also look at MetaZoo as an example of what not to do, right? Because
absolutely.
because I look at that as an example of someone power hungry, right? I could see that, and I think you could make it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility after seeing that to be like, whoa, what if like James White does this, right? Like, but that's not the case because, well, it's a level-headed person who cares about his game, cares about the community, and doesn't want like
crazy, right?
Yeah, amazing what happens when you're like that. So I just think about that all the time. I'm like, it's so unfortunate because I've never played the game, and I only really know about the game through you, really, honestly, and what you've described to me, what it's about. And maybe it's really easy, and maybe it's like a worse version of a lot of other things. But it's kind of sad. I'm sure there's like a subset of people that really enjoy that game, but it will never get better if it's run like that. So anyway, just thought it'd be fun for the folks to know about that because it is crazy and you know, and it kind of sucked because like even if you could go to day 2, like if you didn't test positive for COVID, like you still traveled all the way down to Texas, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And spent money on hotels or whatever, or Airbnb. It's kind of I don't know. It seemed crazy to me, but you know, I think it's probably a net positive in the
Oh,
end.
100%.
Yeah.
I would absolutely do it again.
Yeah.
No regrets.
Yeah, I know. I think I've seen you on Twitter kind of like look at some of these new tournaments coming out. You're like, oh, I wonder if I could, you know, run it again. But it is.
Yeah.
I'm like waiting for Dagan to get kicked out of some more games. But, you know, I don't think that will happen. But so this happens, right? And you had already been involved with Flesh and Blood at this point, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And now, when did Flesh and Blood really come into your life?
Like when I first started.
Yeah.
I think it was during my let's say Pokemon recovery phase, where I was relearning how I should be just mentally, you know. And there was a learn to play event at a local store for this game, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it out. It's free. And I immediately fell in love. The first hero I really stuck with was Levi, actually, because
Oh
we were
yeah.
playing the Monarch Blitz decks. I was like, this is incredible. Like, I love the theme of this. It's great. And then the first event I went to was like a Monarch release event, basically. So that's kind of the time period that I started.
Sure. Now, what is it about this game as opposed to all the other games that you've played that's kind of really kept its hooks in you?
The low variance, honestly, is
Mm-hmm.
my favorite thing about the game. It makes it so all the work you put in actually reflects, in my opinion. Like, huge fan of that, personally. And the community is also great too, but
Yeah.
from a game standpoint, that's the biggest thing for me.
Well, yeah. I mean, when you started like Monarch release event, there was a community, right? But there was no
Yeah,
community like that we know of it now, right? So the
yeah.
game had to do a lot of heavy lifting at the time.
Correct.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
and like you know, I'm sure that LSS would be happy to hear that because I think that's kind of what they were aiming for, right? Low variance. Um, you know, and you mentioned the theme of the Leviathan deck, right? You know, they do a good job of kind of translating the hero to the deck and all that. So, you know, it's interesting. So we've hung out at some tournaments. It's a lot of fun. You've done really well at a lot of tournaments as well, right? And you know, I could list all of them, but you know, we're still waiting for the biggest one. You're just gonna win Worlds one day. But what has
One
been what has been your favorite moment in this game so far?
So I have two of them probably that I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
One was that first Speakeasy event in Ohio. That was so much fun. That was one of those events where, like, I wish I was actually playing less just because of how much fun, like, that entire group was. And I've never felt that in my life. That was incredible. Just hanging out in that the basement of this gym,
Yeah.
like drinking and drafting and having a good time.
Yeah, I mean, what you got to give props to like Keith and Realm Games because they just put
Oh
on awesome events and just and I'm so excited. You know, I've been talking to Keith and I'll probably start talking about the Realm Games brawls a little bit more in the show, but you know they have a whole slew of tournaments lined up for 2023, and that's very exciting, especially because like I didn't get to go to that one that you're talking about, but I got to go to the next one. That was a blast. So that's one of them. What's the other big moment for you?
The other one was the dev challenge for me at Worlds.
Oh
That
yeah.
was an experience I was not expecting to have. Because I wasn't feeling great after like narrowly missing top 8, but like
Hmm.
the dev challenge just completely gave it a 180 and then turned like that entire event to like a massive highlight for me. Just meeting like the developers and James White for a little bit. It was so much fun playing against those guys.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about that. So you won the dev challenge, right?
I did, yeah.
And for those of you who don't know, they had a challenge at Worlds where you can, play against the developers, which is pretty awesome. I mean, what other games really doing that? You know? And So all these were they awesome? Did you get to talk to them about like what they've developed?
I didn't have much time personally to talk to him,
Mm-hmm.
because Oldhim, I'm playing a little bit of a slower deck. I just kind of had to go round around more or less. Um, but I played against Kieran. That was my round one. And you might know him from the what was it called? It was one of the old OG like podcasts for the game. It was
Okay.
Session Blood. That's the one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was like, I recognize your voice. Where's that from? And yeah, that was him. So it was a lot of fun talking with him. We had a lot of fun in our match. He was on Bravo, so it was like a guardian mirror. Um, Super fun guy to talk to. And then immediately after the game, the first thing he said to me is, "Don't worry, Dagan, we won't ban you." And it just like made my whole weekend.
That's amazing. That's so funny. I mean, it's cool for two reasons, right? Because they're cool about
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and also that they know the whole
They know,
situation.
right? It's so funny. I love it.
Yeah. Did you get to play? Now there was one developer that did play Levia, right? Um,
Right. Yeah.
did you get to play against the Levia? Because I heard there was some spice going on. I heard
I
that
did
they also
not.
lost, but
As far as I knew, he was playing the version of Levia that just rolled dice every turn. So he was rolling scabbies, trying to get like a ton of value.
yeah.
Unfortunately, because it was elimination, I think only 2 devs made it past the first round, 1 or
Oh
2 devs.
wow.
So it was not good for them. The rest of the bracket was 9 through 16 for context of worlds. So
Okay.
there were 0 bad players in this event.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it sounds pretty awesome. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it was really cool to see that you won that, and World seemed like an awesome event as well. And yeah, I mean, like, hey, I mean, it sounds like you narrowed it down to two like great moments, but
Mhm.
I that's probably two of many, right? That
Oh,
have been,
100%.
I
Yeah.
I personally, at least when I'm thinking about yourself and myself, right, hanging out, hanging out in the Airbnb in Charlotte, like after everything, kind of
Oh,
just
yeah.
chilling, watching Emily play Slay the Spire. It was just I don't know, it felt like just buds hanging out, which is kind of like the whole purpose of my
Oh,
podcast. So I
100%.
was
Yeah.
like, wait, this is like the podcast, real life. So, but speaking of the podcast and the buds, we do have listener questions. If you're game to answer some, Dagan.
Yeah, let's go.
These come from the Buds Discord and the listener questions channel. Anybody can submit them when I post, hey, I got so and so coming on. If you got questions, pop them in here. First comes from Greg, aka Darth Prentice, who is our producer on the show. He's taking some leave for the fact that he had a baby. He asked 2 questions. The first is, what's it like being a stone cold killer? And what is something that you think gives you an edge in TCGs? I.e., is it practice, deck building, something else?
First of all, congrats on the baby. And then I'm not entirely sure how you're supposed to answer being called a stone cold killer, but
Just say it's awesome.
I don't. I just play the game, man. I don't know. When it comes to an edge, I had a huge gap of not working from basically Pro Tour France until like a month ago. So I had a huge amount of time to really grind games and then practice and
Mhm.
research and everything going into Worlds. And I think that gave me like a huge edge.
That makes sense. It's just like, if we all had time to do stuff, and it's unfortunate that you weren't working, right? It's like, but it's a silver
Worked out.
lining that comes out of
Yeah.
it, which is
Yep.
which is nice that you got to like, just be great at the game. But yeah, I mean, it's just like practice time seems to be like the biggest thing because it is a skill based game and low variance, and it's just like anything else, right? You got to practice to get good at something. So makes
For
sense
sure.
to me. Next question.
What
Oh yeah, go ahead.
like, one more thing, sorry.
Yeah, 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 good.
One big variable I notice about a lot of card games is how certain a lot of the top players are of specific things.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the mottos I kind of came up recently is the bigger the ego, the bigger the edge.
Oh,
So
okay.
usually when people are set in their opinion, you can usually find something to kind of get in there and find the edge
All
if
right.
they're a little different. So
Kind of like that. Is that why you walk
yeah.
around with a belt?
I just do that because it's funny. Honestly, that's all.
I love it. Next comes from a Canadian named Matt DeMarco, aka Flake. He asks, "Why do you look like an anime character he could trust?"
I feel like the belt and the possum shirt kind of lean into that a little bit. That goofy character. Um, I don't think I have crazy enough hair to be an anime character, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, hey, we can work on that. We'll next tournament we'll hit
We
the
could.
we'll hit the hair salon. Next comes from my co-host Gary from the Bud Rush Bellow, Mr. Viz, who says, "We know the dev competition is soft AF. When are you joining them to up the power level? Is there any desire to get into the development side of the game?"
It, I haven't thought about it too much, but LSS, if you're listening, you can definitely hit me up.
Hit him up. Hit him up. He beat all of you. I mean, come on. Or at least one of them. But
Yeah.
next comes from Capolo, who asks, I had to edit it for him here because he said that
Sure.
he just woke up and just wanted to throw one at us. But he says, after seeing decks like the Iris Dromai list, which I believe Howling Minds was championing. Do you think there are more archetypes to be found in the game, or are decks still pretty much on rails?
I think so, to an extent. I mean, the core of a deck will generally remain the same just because of how strong certain cards are. But like, I remember in the beginning, like the first round of Road to Nationals, I was playing Katsu. Like that was the first main deck I really played, and I was playing like Turtle Fatigue Katsu.
Mm-hmm.
And you've also seen like Aggro Katsu. So you can play different variations of the same hero and still find success for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and they keep adding stuff, right? Like Katsu's got the Kitty Katsu now version,
Right.
and I'm with you. I think like to an extent, right? There's always going to be probably some cards that are always going to be in there, right?
Right.
And even I see it with Leviathan. And I feel like Leviathan has like a ton of different ways you can build her, but there's always going to be like that, like 20 cards that you're like, oh, I got to put these in, and then we'll build around that. Next comes from Sigma, which actually kind of nice segue with Leviathan. Which low living legend, or like an older one that has not really kind of been getting points lately, hero would you pick to try and solve, maybe make it viable to the meta? And would you do it for the fun of brewing something broken, or just for the challenge?
I think the character with the highest potential currently at the moment is probably Dorinthia. Now I know she had a lot of success early, so I don't know if this quite counts, but she hasn't been super popular lately, so that's the one I'm going to go with.
It's
My
fair.
favorite version of this deck is the one with attack action cards, so it's a little goofier.
Oh yeah.
So you'll have like Snatch, because you can give your weapon go again, or like overblock it, and you come in with an attack, and just kind of mix them up,
Play like Pursuit of Knowledge and stuff like
Right,
that.
yeah.
The Pro Quest I was at this weekend, 28 folks were playing. 2 Dorinthias in the top 8, which was or at least I believe that 2 made top 8. They were in the top tables for most of the day, and yeah, I mean it's something that has a lot of potential. I know Sigma was waiting for you to say Leviathan, but that's all right. We'll get you there.
I wish. Yeah.
Too much variance for Dagan. You can't go back to that.
Exactly.
Next question comes from Remy, who asks, do you still have your Blitz Rhinar together from months ago? And if so, have you made any significant changes?
I do. In fact, that's the main Blitz deck I still play. When I play a Blitz, I'm here for a good time. I don't see it as much of a competitive format at the moment. Otherwise, I just play Oldhim in both formats, honestly. That's kind of boring.
Yeah.
So sometimes you like to roll dice,
Yeah. And they just actually announced a skirmish season in April today. So you'll be sleeving that, or you won't even be sleeving it back up. You already have it sleeved. You'll be getting ready to
always ready.
get some cold foil azaleas or something.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good. Next comes from Iron Mag. Dagan, Are you going to save some gold foils for the rest of us? Also, how are you feeling towards the new season coming with limited in mind?
One, no. No, I'm just kidding. I can only go to so many pro quests. And the new season with limited, I am really excited for the Trapper, personally. That
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
great. I love defense reactions, and traps getting some support does get me excited. I am really excited for the new limited format with dual class cards.
Yeah.
Because the problem with sets like Uprising is eventually people just solve them and it gets stale really fast. So I'm hoping that this doesn't go the same way.
Yeah, it has like a lot of potential to be like a ton of fun. And, you
Yeah.
know, I remember from Magic, the best sets was just like, oh, it's still like 2 months into this draft format and folks are still kind of figuring stuff out. Kind of love that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Next comes from Greg Big Dick Jones on the Discord. Which hero are you taking in a fist fight?
If I'm trying to win,
Yeah.
I could probably fist fight Kano. If I'm having a good time, probably Valda.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Valda's kick your ass, but you're the second person in a row to answer Kano to that question.
Yeah, yeah.
Greg likes to throw that one out
Mhm.
for the guest. And next one from a new bud, or at least a new bud in the Discord, joined today and then immediately posted a question. What do you do to prepare for tournaments? You know, what are your basic needs and gameplay repetitions, and how much do you utilize electronic play? You know, i.e., TTS, Felt Table, Talishar.
The best way to test is to have something more structured with like a set team, which I'm
Mm-hmm.
lucky enough to have now with Team Ascent. Um, but in order to prepare for specific events, the biggest thing is always just like having your sideboard notes and everything set aside beforehand, so that way you have to think less when it comes to the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just already prepared. Get all the practice and plans set beforehand is basically the biggest thing.
And I'm going to add on to this question in terms of like sideboard plans, right?
Mhm.
You know what I like to do is have like the aggro plan, the mid range plan, the control plan, and then wizards or whatever. You know, is it better to do it like that, or do you typically find it's better to have specific hero plans?
I might be like a little overboard, but I always prefer to be safe than sorry. So
Sure.
I actually list out every single hero in my sideboard notes, and then have like a general game plan going in written
Every
down as well.
every every hero, even like
Every
Leviah,
hero,
even Azalea.
even Bolton. Yep,
Oh,
everyone.
oh my Lanta, that is. I mean, I get it because you know how many times I've played. Like even in the past 2 weeks, I played Battle Hardened, New Jersey, played ProQuest this past weekend. I had multiple people say, "I have no notes for Leviah. I don't know what to board in." I'm just like,
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is just lose to something like that. I'm not taking
oh,
it too.
oh, come on. I get my wins. I get my wins. Trust me, I roll sixes all the time. That's all that happens. Um, but yeah, no, thank you everyone for those questions. They were wonderful. Dagan answered them just wonderfully. We have a new segment, not a new segment. This is the same old segment. We have another segment for you called the Fresh Faves, Dagan, where I'm going to ask you a few of your favorite cards in the game, and hopefully you answer them. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Awesome. First, who is your favorite hero?
Katsu.
Katsu. It's a good question. Good answer. You know, you mentioned you were playing Old Turtle Katsu. You ever think about going back?
If it's ever good again, definitely.
Do you? And actually, this is a nice little aside question for you. Talking to one buddy, Jim, and you know he loves Katsu as well. And do we think that because Katsu got like a lot of tools and fun things to play with in Dynasty, even got some stuff in Uprising. Is it possible that we have all of our best ninja minds on fire right now, and just like Katsu's getting pushed to the wayside? Do you think it's maybe possible if everybody started focusing on Katsu, we can kind of break what those card interactions that really what they want it to be?
Fortunately, Fi just does everything Katsu wants to do, but better at the moment.
Yeah.
He's just more consistent. And the new kitty combo, as you put it, unfortunately, if a player knows what they're doing, they can just block that one combo card, and they just kind of fall apart. It's kind of like Benji in that way, honestly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's unfortunate at the moment. Hopefully, we get some new cards in the next set, though.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we have an opportunity here to get new Katsu cards, and I guess because it's a draftable hero, right? So we're gonna have to get new combo cards. I can't imagine they're just gonna reprint old combo lines, or maybe hopefully they add to old combo lines even. So
Good. Yeah.
it should be interesting. Now, what is your favorite weapon?
Kodachis. Little
Kodachis, all
paper
right.
cuts.
Yeah, I mean if you love Katsu, I guess you kind of have to love Kodachis, right? You
Right.
know?
I go ahead. Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite equipment?
I'm gonna go with Crown of Seeds for this
Oh,
one, or
okay.
like honorable mention, Mask Momentum. But
Yeah. I was
um,
wondering if you're gonna go with the mask, but
I,
Crown
I
of Seeds
could
makes
have
sense.
swap it. The consistency that Crown of Seeds gives me to lower my variance even more. I huge fan of that. Love it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll get to that in a bit, but like, there's a strong possibility that we won't be able to play that card in CC
I
probably
hope
by the
not.
end of this year.
Yeah.
Unless they print a new Earth hero. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, the card is very good, and maybe the fact and that all the heroes that could play it are getting LL is
Yes.
a testament to that. Though Briar's not really playing it that much, though we do see it sometimes. And then what is your favorite, kind of run of the mill card? Your attack actions, your non-attack actions, your instants.
I mean, I feel like this is kind of obvious with everything I've said so far, but Flick Flack is definitely my favorite.
Oh yeah, I mean I can't fault you for loving Flick Flag. That card's awesome.
Yeah. It's just so efficient at what it does.
It really is. It really is. And it feels like a card that we don't really see anymore because Katsu's kind of fallen to the wayside, right? I guess Fi
Yeah.
doesn't ever really want to play it, right?
Yeah, it's just like a worse sync below. He doesn't play combo cards, so
Yeah, yeah. It's a shame, but hopefully with not uprising outsiders, we get some more flick flack action going again, which would
oh
be a
yeah.
lot of fun. So I alluded to it there a second ago. I want to talk a little bit about Oldhim, right? So
hmm
Oldhim seems to be the deck to beat, or at least it would seem that way with a lot of the wins it's getting, including some of your own wins.
Yeah.
And it's possible it's the best it's ever been. And I want to talk about why, but first I want to talk about you started a Patreon and posted your Oldhim guide on there, right?
I did. Yeah.
What kind of led you to want to do that?
Uh, Part of it, honestly, was just kind of putting my ideas in writing in a way that made sense, so I could read back over it later, just to
Mm-hmm.
kind of refresh my memory, because my memory is not good. So I have to write down a lot of that kind of stuff, to kind of keep it internalized. And I figured at that rate, might as well just put it out there and then see what happens. I only expected like 10 people to sign up for it, and we're up to like 90. It's crazy.
It's pretty awesome, man. It's pretty great. I did see when you announced it, and I was like, oh man, I knew people were going to eat it up too, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's one thing if a random it's I have a Patreon. It'd be one thing if I was like I'm putting up an Oldhim guide. I don't think
right.
and not to like talk down on myself, but I don't think people are running from the hills to get to that Oldhim guide, right? But Dev Challenge winner, Nationals top 8, top 16, all these different things. People are going to be chomping at the bit because this game is still new-ish at this point, right? A lot of the people that are playing have been playing for a while, but there's a lot of new players, and I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of folks is, well, how do I build this deck, and when I have this deck, how am I supposed to make it work, right? So
Yeah.
I could see why people ran for it. So the response has been good.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I feel partially guilty for spawning a bunch of little baby Oldhims running around winning pro quests, but it's been crazy. Like the amount of messages I've gotten, it's like, thanks for the guide. I got top 8 at my pro quests, or I won my pro quests. It's a little humbling, I guess. like that other people can have so much success with just like information I can give out. Maybe humbling's not right the word, but you get the point. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a testament to you, right? There's there's a lot of knowledge that isn't shared in this game, I think.
mhm,
And for whatever reason, I don't want to if somebody wants to keep their secrets, they're more than, allowed to, right? But I think it's great when someone like you've become somewhat of a figure in the game, right? Whether it's because of your MetaZoo stuff or just your
it's
great
probably that.
finishes, but you're active on social media, you're a good member of the community. So I think it's really cool when someone like yourself kind of steps up and is like, well, hey, listen, I have this kind of asset, this knowledge, I'll put it behind the paywall, because it helps out. I mean, you said you were out of work for a little bit, I think
Right.
getting some money is not the worst thing in the world, right? This is like it, folks can obviously gain something from it, and that's why they joined it. They felt like they got value from it, which is very cool. And I know you just said that you feel bad for spawning a bunch of little Oldhims around here.
Yeah.
But that's the beautiful thing about the Living Legend system is it will solve itself. And so we have the banned and restricted coming next week, and a lot of folks, people just talk on social media, as you know. A lot of folks are talking about ice is too oppressive. We need to fix ice, Oldhim, Icelander, it's too much. Is it really this oppressive, or folks overreacting? I feel like I know the answer to this from you, but I figured I'd pose it.
I mean, are the ice heroes good? Yes. Are they overpowered? Most likely not. They kind of create this new atmosphere where people have to get used to playing around disruption. And I
Mhm.
think we haven't fully settled on correct solutions yet. So I think it needs a little more time to breathe. It's probably my in-depth answer.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's like weird, Oldhim. Well, I mean, I lost to like an ice Oldhim at the ProQuest, right? He's playing like Frostfang and Pummel and all that. Feels impressive when I'm playing Levia, but some decks don't
Sure.
care when you're doing that stuff, right? They could
Yeah.
totally just like get over the top of it. So, I think a lot of people think that there's something going to get banned, but I hope there's not, because I feel like the meta's in a great point. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree. It can definitely reevaluate after the two callings, but I think it's good right now.
Yeah, two callings, and then like right around the corner we have outsiders, which you would
Right.
hope these new assassins actually gonna get real support, and Rangers gonna get the biggest support it's gotten since Tales of Aria. Brute's not getting anything, of course, but
Yeah.
we all knew that. But hey, what can you do? But we'll see how it goes. And I think we have like a couple of heroes close to Living Legend, and the first one is Briar, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of folks thought that Briar was going to hit Living Legend pretty easily, and then the meta really shifted. For example, I looked at the Living Legend article or page today, which is what is today? Monday, January 23rd. And they updated it on the 20th, and it reflected the first week of ProQuest plus Battlehardened New Jersey and Battlehardened Leeds. So Briar is 60 points away, but Oldhim did pick up the most points that weekend, 80 points in that first week compared to Briar's 18. So, that being said, Oldhim still has like 422 points to go before he's Living Legend, but is it likely that Oldham's going to catch up in the rest of ProQuest season, since Briar would still need something like 30 more wins in 2 weeks?
I mean, it's definitely more likely for Oldhim to win a ProQuest than Briar right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it'll get close to catching up. There's still so many other good decks right now that
Yeah, I
I
mean, I
don't.
guess it would depend on the calling
Right.
in Indy and Auckland, because you still get a big chunk of points there, but The interesting thing is, like, do you think Breyer is going to get to Living Legend before like Outsiders?
I don't think so. I don't think so. She doesn't play super great into Disruption,
Yeah, yeah,
which is prevalent right now.
and surprisingly high variance, right?
Yes. Yep.
I played against one Breyer last weekend, and they whiffed on the old Sonata for 4, which felt good.
Unfortunate. Yeah.
I gotta say, because I did whiff on some Scabskin rolls in that game, so it was all even Stevens, but
Yeah.
So you don't see Oldhim lapping his fellow hero from Tales of Aria.
I don't think so.
So would you say Oldham's the best deck right now, or is there so much variety it doesn't matter? It's just there seems to be a lot of Oldhams rising to the top.
I think he has the best matchup spread overall, but the strongest deck is probably either Icelander or Oldhim, one of the two.
And would you say Fi is kind of creeping up there in third?
He's definitely there, number 3. It's either him or Dash.
True.
Those
Dash.
are like the 4 best decks in my opinion.
Now, what would you say? And I'm sure you know this, pretty off the top of your head. Not even like in an opinion kind of answer. Like you probably could answer this with fact. What are Oldham's worst matchups?
A really, really good Icelander.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Maybe the clock. I guess you could say that too, depending on the player.
The clock is an issue, right? Would you say that it depends on the player, or would you depends on the opponent sometimes? Because I feel like Oldhim knows what it's doing, but the opponent's overthinking everything sometimes.
Potentially. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to the mirrors and the matchup with Icelander. But that's basically my answer.
All right, yeah, it's a fair answer. You know better than I do.
There's a lot, yeah.
So now we have 2 callings in February, and that's like the biggest stuff we have until Outsiders comes out, and then eventually the Pro Tour, right? The calling Indianapolis and the calling Auckland. Do you think those tournaments are Oldham's to win? Because I mean, if I'm hearing you correctly here, it's good Icelanders have the best matchup, right, into Oldhim, and the question is how many good Icelanders are showing up to these tournaments, right? So, would you say it's Oldham's tournaments to win?
I would still say so, and do an open field, yes.
I would say, I mean, it's a. I hope so because more points for Oldhim. But yeah, I don't hate Oldhim. I've played a decent amount of Oldhim actually, more so than probably any like top tier hero, and I think it's an awesome deck. I mean, I remember, unfortunately Drew doesn't play much anymore, Drew Cordell, but we had Drew come on when Oldhim was first like released, and he talked all about like how that deck's going to work. It was very cool, very enlightening to see someone who knew Guardian so well kind of talk about it. And it's kind of impressive how Oldhim kind of stands the test of meta, right? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what meta it is. Oldhim seems to always have some kind of a chance. What was that?
So he's always been kind of the rock.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's, I guess you can say that Prism was something that kept him in check, and it's crazy. I'm hearing the craziest thing to me, Dagan, is I'm hearing or seeing people talk about, I wish Prism was back, and I don't understand. That's like sounds like the craziest thing I've ever heard. But so before we kind of leave, I do want to touch on Outsiders, just because you mentioned that you are into the trap guy, Riptide.
Yeah,
I'm also into. We don't know what he does. We can only speculate. But I'm also into whatever he's gonna do because he's like a big gross dude, and I want to play him, right?
Fair.
And So he has less life than 40, right? Starts at 38, at least in CC, and 19 in Blitz. What do you think what would you guess is the kind of evening out, like, power level thing that is the reason for the 2 less life?
Just speculation. The only thing I can think of, because he's like a trap-based hero, is maybe you could like get a free one either at the start of the game or at some point in the game, maybe to like balance that life difference. That's the only thing that really makes sense from a ranger standpoint. And like
Yes,
only thing I can think of.
it makes sense. Something that I was thinking about, and let me know what you think about this, right? So his name's Riptide. He's nautical themed because like a fisherman, but also like kills people or whatever. I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever they're doing in the pits. But so he's trap based. He fishes. Is what if his ability is like whatever cost, fish a trap out of your deck, put into your arsenal. Seems like it'd be kind of like a really cool way to, because traps from crew are cool, but like they're not necessarily good. But if you had
Right.
some kind of selection of traps, I think all of a sudden they're very playable.
I do really like that toolbox idea. The problem is those traps would have to be face up, so your opponent would know they're there. You know?
Yeah,
So I don't know how well that would work in practice, but
that's true. That's true.
it's a
Yeah,
fun
you
idea.
can't put them face down, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I guess, or you can even just look at the top 3, and then you don't have to put a trap on the bottom. I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe that's like a hero defense reaction like Oldhim, where you can kind of like play them off the top, similar to like Rangers play cards off the top.
Oh, that'd be kind of neat, right? And
Yeah.
here's another question. So he's in his main hero art, right? He has a bow on his back. It's very hard to see, but he has one, and he's a ranger, so he'll be able to use any of the bows. But do you think he gets to use that anchor hook thing that he's holding? That's completely impaling a poor
I
person.
really hope so. I hope that's like his majestic weapon or something,
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
like stronger, and that way Ranger could finally have a real weapon.
I know, right? It's the biggest issue, and it would have to be non-talented because it doesn't seem like this set has
Right.
talents, which is also really cool.
Yeah.
Also, do you think these are just things that are floating into my head right now, Dagan?
Mhm.
So we have these hybrid cards that we mentioned earlier in the show that are going to be in the game, in the set. Do you think we'll get hybrid weapons?
I think so. That's probably like the next step, right? That would make sense. Because like
Yeah.
you can like assassins and rangers in the same set, it's easy to dual class because they have very similar like weapon types.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, so yeah, I could very well see that being a thing.
yeah, and it would also give LSS the opportunity to give Rangers a dagger, which
Yeah,
folks have been.
Kadachi.
Yeah, yeah, Kadachi Ranger.
Yeah.
Then we know you're going to play Ranger.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But all right. So this has been fun, Dagan. It's always good chatting with you. Good hanging with you.
Yeah.
I want to, before you plug anything, we talked about Oldhim. This is your baby right now, but it will hit LL. I guarantee it. I promise. It's gonna go. I want to know which hero you have your eyes on next that's not Riptide.
Well, that makes it hard. uh, in terms of competitive play,
Mm-hmm. Competitive play. Like, you look at the like all the heroes, the gallery of heroes that we have right now, and we have a
Mhm.
pretty good grasp on what they all do and how they all perform. But if Oldham's not in, who's your next choice?
I would say Icelander, but I imagine they would probably go at about the same time, to be honest.
Interesting.
So my third would probably be Fi at that point.
All right. So you're staying up at the tippy top. I get it.
Yep. Yep.
Now you
How else
play.
are you gonna get those gold foils?
Yeah, I know, man. You're the gold foil killer. Just the zookeeper, the gold foil killer. You're just That's how good you are. But are you gonna ever sleeve up Reinar and CC though?
I wish he gets to the point where it makes sense to bring it to a big tournament. That would be a ton of fun.
He spikes some tournaments. It's not like he's
He does.
yeah.
He does. It's almost there.
He's almost there. He just needs another. I'm telling you, Brute in general, Levia, Reinar, doesn't matter. Just needs another blue 6-power, and they don't want to give it to us.
All right.
They're the worst.
It's funny because somebody was mentioning that around one of the devs. He just rolled his eyes. Like clearly they get that all the time. I think they're scared.
They're 100. You know what? Like, have you ever heard the rumor that like one of the devs or a couple of the devs are just like insanely good Brute players, and that's why Brute never really gets any good support because they base it on their little meta in the office.
Yeah. It's probably Jason on
Levia
probably.
Yeah, well, he's rolling scabs. I mean, if you get 2 action points a turn, like just for free, you know, I guess it is pretty.
He's playing all the tomes. He knew what he was doing.
I know. I wish I was that brave. I'm still playing like stuff that mitigates the variance, but you know what? I'll probably sleeve that up at some point. So, Dagan, this has been a lot of fun. Please plug everything you'd like to plug, your Twitter, your Patreon, all that stuff. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a blast hanging out here. We'll be down to do it again for sure. You can find me on Twitter at Kodachi1, and I have pinned my Oldhim guide there as well with my Patreon if you're interested in that. If you want to join the old men army, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I implore everyone to go check it out, especially if you want to kind of level up your game and you're interested in Oldhim. We still have time with Oldhim, right? You know, I talk a little bit about he's gaining on Briar, but we still have time regardless. I think it's more likely that just Briar takes forever to LL than Oldhim does. But go check that out. You know, support Dagan. Dagan's an awesome bud, just a blast to hang out with, and you know, he really knows his stuff, and you know, it shows. It shows. He's got more. He says he has 1 brain cell. He's got more. I guarantee it. So, yeah, please check him out. You guys can all continue to find me on Twitter at FreshBudsPod. Please subscribe to the YouTube if you watch there, or if you're just interested in what I'm doing over there. I'm trying to get those sub numbers up just to, you know, I don't know. It just seems like I have to, so I'm going to do it, right? You know, why not? And I'll get to, you know, dress up as Levia. I'm already thinking about how I'm going to do the tentacles. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, if you're listening on like Spotify or anything like that, leave a review, rate it. You know, on Spotify you can do, you know, out of 1 to 5 stars. I would appreciate 5 stars, which would be nice. A lot of people have done that. It's wonderful. I'm so grateful. And yeah, join the Discords. The Bud Discord is awesome, and it's a lot of fun there. And yeah, and the Patreon as well, which is you know, humming and dinging. So Dagan, I always like to end the episode talking a little bit about food. So
Okay.
What's some food you're enjoying right now, man?
Oh, that's a tough question. So many good foods. I don't know why, but there's this one that's always really close to me for some reason, because if you'd have it in school all the time, it's those Crispitos, you know? Those like crispy burrito things you like dip in cheese.
Oh, like a chimichanga in a way?
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was just something we had around here in school, and that was always like the highlight of everybody's school day. It's like when somebody got one of those.
Oh, nice.
I don't know.
I mean,
I'm gonna go with that's the first thing that pops in my head, so we're gonna go with that.
sounds good to me. Honestly,
Yeah.
the best school lunch that we always had was those pizza sticks. They were just like mozzarella
Oh yeah,
sticks.
yeah, those are good too.
But you know, they were good. You know, they were probably feeding us poison in school, but what can you do? It tasted all right. So
Sure.
you know, what a way to end the show. Dagan, this was wonderful, and I can't wait to see you again, and I can't wait to see all the buds again. Thank you all. Please have a good week.